Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Noa Shtang, and I'm a software engineer and the founder of EcoHubMap. I've been working as a software engineer for almost a decade, mainly with Next.js and Node.js. Over the past year, I was involved in cybersecurity testing of my own platform. I worked with a team of cybersecurity students and their professor. EcoHubMap is a platform for sustainable businesses, and quite often we collaborate with universities, so it was the case. And as developer, I was interested in cybersecurity as well. So today I will give you a practical overview of the tools that are used for cybersecurity testing of web applications. And it will not be presented as a from perspective of the penetration testing, but more from a software engineer, how we can protect our products and what we have to pay attention on. Before I begin, I would love to learn a bit more about the audience. Can you please raise your hand if you work as a software engineer? Almost most of people here. And have you ever worked with tools like Burp Suite or Avast Zap? Okay, so it will be new for you, and it is exactly what I wanted to introduce you today. Why do we want to speak about cybersecurity? So according to the industry reports, over 83% of web applications have contain at least one security issue. At the same time, many startups and small businesses don't have a proper cybersecurity team. So most of the times, it is a responsibility of software engineers to build a secure product. Before we dive into testing, let's have a look on a simple example. It happened in 2015 to the TalkTalk company, the UK telecommunication provider. They suffered from the breach caused by SQL injection. And that attack was possible only because old pages were still live, only because old endpoints weren't secure, weren't removed, and hackers found them. The lesson is simple. Many times, organizations forget about old code, old endpoints, old pages, and hackers can find them. Later, I will show you the first step of cybersecurity testing. It is reconnaissance. It is exactly the stage when we discover those hidden endpoints, and it is part of our responsibility to know them, at least to know them, that they exist. There are three main approaches to the testing, to the cybersecurity testing: the white box, gray box, and black box. Today we'll focus on black box testing, mainly because it goes from the attacker perspective. It is how someone who wants to attack our application sees it, and we run an application in real environment, so we can test it in a real environment. Here is a WASP top 10 cybersecurity threats for modern web applications, and we will focus on four: broken access control, SQL injection, security misconfigurations, and authentication failures. The rest of them are also important, but they require some additional knowledge about the code, about the architecture, and also this four is easier to test with Burp Suite, and they are quite important for software engineers. Our workflow today, which is designed for discovering vulnerabilities. First, we will do reconnaissance, then we will go through application mapping, security coding review, authentication and authorization, and SQL injections. Reconnaissance helps us to understand how an application before we actually test it. The goal here to understand the surface, to identify technologies that used, and to discover assets that may be overlooked. The main tools we use on this stage: crt.sh, Wayback Machine, GitHub, and DNS dump. I believe most of you know this tool. The one GitHub, it is important to check your GitHub if your the repository is public. Then quite often developers can forget API keys, some security, even sometimes security keys, or maybe even internal documentation. So if repository is public, it is nice to check it time to time from the hacker's perspective. Wayback Machine gives us historical pages. It helps us to know the surface that other people see. And I want to show you an example of crt.sh, how it works. It is a real example of GitHub. So when we run github.com in this tool, it is the pages we can find, all subdomains. Some of them belong to GitHub, and they can be, you can have a look at the second page. All of them are connected to GitHub. And this is exactly what hackers might be looking for when they thinking about your application, your website, because those subdomains, many times they're less secure than the main application. So the main findings on the reconnaissance stage, it is forgotten environment, it is hidden subdomains, all the APIs, and some infrastructure details. So when we are looking on our product, we want to know what others can find, what other people can find about this application. Next step is application mapping and passive assessment. On this stage, before testing, we want to know how it works. We want to know API, we want to know all the assets of the application. And main tools we are using here, it is Burp Suite, Avast Web, Browser DevTools, and Postman. While most of software engineers know well Browser DevTools and Postman, Burp Suite and Avast Web give us additional capabilities because we not only see the application and API, but we can also test it. Burp Suite, we will focus today on the Burp Suite. I will show you examples with this tool. We can also, we not only see an endpoint, not only see the request, we can modify it and we can test the response we are getting. So main questions, what we mainly can do with Burp Suite. It is inspecting API traffic. We can check authentication sessions, authorizations control, and general application workflow. I created screens here in order to be ready and not to take time with the live coding. So when you just open your Burp Suite, you want to enter the target, the URL you're going to work with. In my case, it was localhost 3000. And then you can browse it as a regular application. So you just open it with a browser, and you see the browser that has settings. And when you enter your URL, all requests are going through Burp Suite, and then you can modify them. Just ignore it as like adds from the Burp. And I will show you an example with Avast Juice Shop. Maybe you heard about it. It is vulnerable application created by Avast in order to test security issues. So we will have examples with this application. I will show you. Once I open it on localhost, I can see all the map of the application, API, assets of the application. Obviously, you can say that dev tools show us almost the same, and it is true, but until the point we want to modify it and to check how those requests behave if we change and we enter some additional field or modify the field value. Let's have a look on security and configuration reviews. In this phase, we are going to review application security configurations and many security issues caused not by some problems with the code, but just by misconfigurations of the headers. And by the way, headers, quite often it is easy to fix headers. It doesn't take so much time. So the list of common security headers is here. Probably you're familiar with them, so I will not speak about it a lot. It is the main security headers and also 3 main cookies, security and HTTP only, and same site. We always check them. For example, if we open Wikipedia and Burp Suite, what we can see, we can check all those headers. We can check, we see there is quick transport security. We can see set cookies, secure, HTTP only. It is mainly what we want to see, what is important to have in our product. There is another great tool, security headers.com. It is just a site where you can run your URL and you can check what headers do you have. So surprisingly, Wikipedia got here the not all security headers are set, but it doesn't mean immediately that the application or the product is not secure. Many times there is some business logic behind, and it just product will not work properly if we will use all the headers. Another example is Bank of Cyprus, already has a score B, and I want to show you one more example with A+ security header, where all security headers are properly set. After we check security headers, configurations, there is also important to check HTTPS certificates and verify. Here is an example with our platform, EcoHubMap. We got A+ with all certificates. It means that with all redirections, it works properly. It is, you know, if you run your product and you check security headers, you check it with CSS, SSS lab. Even if not everything is set, at least you know what is not done, and you know you have a room for improvement. It is always in security, in cybersecurity, it is important at least to know where you are. If you are not ready to fix it now, your team not ready to fix it now, maybe there are other priorities in the company. At least it is important to know your weak sides. And it is one of the most important and complicated parts, authentication and authorization review. Why I'm saying it is one of the most important? Because many of most impactful real world vulnerabilities are connected to the authorization problems. Another statistic from AWASP, they say that broken access control, it is top 1 in their top 10, and they found it in 100% of tested applications. So it is something we really want to check and review regularly. When we are thinking about certification, authorization, what questions do we want to ask ourselves? First of all, we want to check, do all endpoints that are supposed to be protected are protected and they require authentication. suddenly like a user can't just access admin panel without having rights to access admin panel. Also, we check if user A can access user B's data. It happens. Does logout works properly? It means the token is expired after logout, and you can't like use the token again. And logout generally by itself and with token. So common vulnerabilities here is broken access control, and actually IDOR vulnerability and privilege escalation are part of broken access control. Privilege escalation means that user without rights, admin rights, for example, can enter the page. IDOR vulnerability means that user just in URL you can change the ID and user can access someone else's data. Obviously, weak password, for example, like someone can attempt, and finally just brute force your password. So we have to block it just like 3-5 times you can try. If not, have to confirm somehow that you're actually the owner of the email, for example. Multi-factor authentication, obviously it is important to protect in accounts not only with passwords, but multi-factor, especially if they have some access, if it is connected to the payments, for example. And there is an example from Burp Suite and Juice Shop. This example is interesting, and you might think it is not so realistic. And yes, Juice Shop is created like it is vulnerable application. So we can see here all examples. Like probably you won't have it in your real application, but Juice Shop is built like that. We want, for example, we want to register and we want to enter admin panel. First we try, we see we don't have access to admin panel, but we want to register a user who hasn't an access. So here I also show you how Burp Suite works. You open in the browser your Juice Shop and you see requests on the Burp. If you want to modify your request, you just have to turn on intercept on. Once it is on, it means that when you send a request, when you press the register button, the request doesn't go to the server, it is in Burp. And now you can do whatever you want. You can modify it, you can change it. And basically here we just add in a role admin, and it works. In Juice Shop, it works. We can create an account with a role admin just by sending such a request. And yes, Juice Shop is vulnerable application, but the issue is that in real world, it also happens if we don't think about security ahead. Yes, real life examples. In real life, it also happens. It is why those issues are top one. It is an example of IDOR, of IDOR problem. So here the user can just change the ID and access another user data. And it happens because we check if user is has authentication, but we don't check if he is authorized and he has access to the information. So the main takeaway from here, we have not, when we give an access, when we have a GET request, we're not only checking that user is logged in, we also check if he has rights to access that information. Session tokens, we got here, you see we got here a session token when we created our account. And the main issues with session tokens, many times it happens that they can be reused. So our responsibility to check that they expire after user logged out. Why they are important? because again, many issues in real world were connected to tokens. Many security incidents starts not from some sophisticated hacker attack, but from the simple mistakes that were discovered. And it is a famous example from Facebook. It happened in 2018, I'm sorry. And it was a flaw in the application logic, and attackers were able to obtain tokens, user tokens, and reuse them. It happened because they had a page view as, so you could see your page as someone else, so how your friends see the page. But if you triggered a video uploading on that page, you could get a token. So hackers used it, and finally 50 million users were affected by that. It is a takeaway from the authorization. What we are checking, we always checking tokens, role switching. It is important to check all your pages from different categories of users. If you have like users who are not logged in, users who are authorized, users with admin role, IDOR testing, forced browser. For example, you want to check if you can just enter some pages that are for company, like internal pages for internal access, if a regular user can see them, and password brute force. And the last session, SQL injections. They happen when untrusted user input includes in the database query and without a proper validation. So then attacker can get an access to the information or can input. You can just add something to your database. Here on the top, we see implementation using queries with parameters. It is a safe way to do it. And on the bottom, we can see unsafe implementation when a user input is directly implemented in the string, in the query string. It is a classic example when we can do SQL injection, when someone can do SQL injection in our code. Here is an example of such injection using Burp Suite again. So how usually we can check if the injection is generally possible? We use a single quote to trigger the database. And if we get an error, so it means that actually it reads your input as a part of query and it breaks it. So here from this point, we know that, okay, injection is possible and we have to fix it. In our example with Juice Shop, it was possible to enter basically any email, because when we close the quote, then we can write whatever. We can write 1 = 1, which is true, and then all the rest of the quote in this query is we commented with 2 dashes, and we can basically enter the account. Like that, we enter the account in Juice Shop just by after the email, we put a comment. So the query, which I showed you before here, basically reads only email and then everything is true. So it gets any email and doesn't require a password and you can enter it. The main thing, the main takeaway, the tools like Burp Suite let us test it. We can test all our endpoints. We can do it manually, like in this example. Also, there are automated options when you can just send your request on repeater with different values, and maybe like after like 50, 100 requests, something will be broken, and you will find an issue, and you will find some vulnerability in your product. In the end, I want to show you security checklist. It is important pre-release especially if you do a lot of changes on them before the release, what you want to check. It is your authentication works, that it works correctly, session tokens, user input validation, all forms that we can't do any additional not secure inputs, headers, and obviously many times what we can forget is some console logs or some error messages that can give hackers information about our product. And generally, security, it is not one-time activity. It is important to do it regularly. So they say that for most of products, one time in 6-12 months, it is a good idea one time in 6-12 months to run all the security tests, because product is changing and we might find something new. Thank you for your time. I hope the presentation gave you a general overview about the tools, and it is a time for your questions.